Hello, guys. It's been a week for me, honestly. And I came to the realization that our current president is enforcing censorship and taking down websites that have to do with LGBTQIA plus and mental health, anything that has to do with teens and trans surgeries. He's trying to get rid of those programs. A lot of things are happening in the world right now, and I just really need to talk about it. So, welcome to the Giro News Network, where we discuss events and the emotional impacts it has on us as a people. I want to talk to you about real news from real people and what they are currently experiencing in this country and potentially the world. So, this is gonna be a bit of a rough topic. It can probably get depressing. It can become despairful, but if you stick through it, I have some encouraging words at the end. Because of all the censorship, I'm scared that people won't have access to all this information, and I just want to be like a source of information for some people. I've looked and read a lot of articles on what I'm about to discuss, and I'm very passionate about this, and I feel like I have to say something and push it back because I honestly can't believe that we are allowing this in our society today. It's really sad, really demeaning, really demoralizing, and I understand if you don't want to hear it. You don't have to. You can easily just skip to the end and hear the encouraging words and just fight for community, okay? Don't force yourself to watch this if you don't want to, okay? Trigger warning. There may be, obviously, I may describe some graphic events. I will also be talking about, people getting their rights taken away, so that can be very triggering for some people who are currently going through it. So just want everyone to be aware of what we're getting into here when discussing our current president and our current administration and what they are enforcing and what they are trying to take away. Because we as a people have the right to know. We deserve knowledge. So, sorry. In order to make this more comfortable, honestly, you can end up muting me if you want to. I'm gonna have some gameplay in the background, very chill, very calm, nothing crazy. I just want to provide y'all with something interesting to look at while I talk about all these. And of course, everything I talk about that, I've referenced an article, or even if I haven't referenced and I've just talked about it, most things that are important I have put as links in the description, so you can just read those on your own time if you would like. I just wanted to compile some articles that could prove what I'm trying to prove here. So, my thesis is how the current president is toxifying America. He's creating a very toxic environment for his own people, and it's very sad to see. And honestly, we have been through so much as a people within just the last 10 years, within the last 20 years. So many changes have happened. The stock market has crashed multiple times. COVID, we've gone through a lot. And I just feel it's unfair for him to treat others in this way. He was originally promoting himself as a businessman, as someone who was different than the typical politician, but over the years he has turned into exactly what a politician is. A lying person who tells lies to propagate their own agenda, someone who enforces stigmatisms and tries to fearmonger in order to, convince people that whoever he's targeting are the bad ones and not him. Unfortunately, he has a huge cult following, which is very scary, and honestly, after the events of January 6th, I don't know how you could call it anything less than a cult. At best, it's a fan base, because these people will listen to anything he says and just believe it and enjoy it, and it gives them the boldness to then enforce his attitude on others as well, such as being racist, being misogynistic, being a bigot, being a liar, being a narcissist. All of the above are basically, I don't want to be represented by someone who is so hateful and spiteful towards people who aren't a certain kind of person. To me, I think his main people are the rich, white, and powerful, because it is very obvious that he does not care about people from other countries. He does not care about immigrants in general, whether they came here legally or not. And he is actively trying to make it harder for immigrants to come to the US and gain citizenship. Not to mention, he's also trying to take away birthrights. So for now, he's trying to push it onto undocumented immigrants, which is already quite disheartening. But I fear that he's going to push it even further and just make it a status in general. And that is a very scary proposition, because that's kind of what America was built on, right? The American dream, like land of the free. And yet, a couple of centuries later, we are the exact opposite of where we started this journey. America was always called land of the free, yet it was built on the backs of slaves and immigrants. A lot of black people suffered for this country to prosper. And, it wasn't just black people, there were also immigrants from other countries. Most black people came in as slaves, unfortunately, and it's really sad to see. Basically held hostage in the South, and sometimes there were even slaves in the North. So for a long time, we had people who didn't get paid. Basically, they were only fed and barely even taken care of. And once they kind of fulfilled their use, they were cast aside. It's really disappointing to see that basically that's what's happening right now. People are being used and then cast aside once they're no longer useful. We see it in the job market. A lot of people who have been working in certain places are being kicked out because they're too old now, and they want the new younger generation to come in so they can brainwash them too. It is very unfortunate. But let's talk about this a little more concretely, okay? So everyone knows Americans are the loudest in the room, and that's simply because we have the right to speak out on topics we don't agree with. Unfortunately, it seems like we're going to be getting some of those rights taken away as well. Many other countries don't have that luxury, and the government will hunt you down. I feel that we are going down that path, but I just can't sit and do nothing while so much is going on. So, to begin with, I'm going to give you my backstory, my lore, and tell you how I got to this point. I come from 2 immigrant parents who came here legally, mind you, through their parents who were already citizens. I had a childhood like many other people my age. It was traumatic. I always tried to give the appearance that everything was fine and I didn't care about anything, but deep down I felt as though I were dying. I would be toiling with emotions I couldn't even understand and had no one to speak to about them. I wish I had given therapy a real chance when I was younger, but I didn't really have support in the way of my mental health and emotional development. My parents, especially my father, thought that if you go to therapy, it makes you, it means that you're crazy, which is not the case at all. Therapy is for building yourself up, healing emotional wounds, as well as trying to put the steps and take the steps to change and become a better person, to become the version of you you really want to be. And so, I didn't find it to be important back then because I didn't think I could actually fix my mental health. I thought, I'm just gonna be stuck like this forever. I wasn't really allowed to express my true feelings to my parents, and so I started to distance myself emotionally from them more and more. I'm sure my father tried his best to be a good parent, but I think he crumbled under the pressure. I cut him and most of that side of my family off. To be honest, I'm fearful to allow them back into my life because of the way they treated me. And also because I think that quite a few of them are fans of this current president, who I do not support under any means, and who I'm very much against mostly all of his policies. So I just can't get along with people who agree with him, because that means that they don't agree with my values. So everyone on that side of my family used to love me because I was the first grandchild who wasn't a boy. Little did they know, I never associated with that part of myself. Deep down, I always knew I didn't fit in with the other girls. For one, I had very strong emotions for girl. I'm gay. Growing up was hard because I wasn't supported by my family, only put down. I didn't have a safe space to really explore this passion I had of finding my one true love. I used to watch a lot of movies as a kid, and, I kind of romanticized a lot about what a relationship would be. And honestly, movies might have been what drove me to get a film degree in college. I had always loved creating things in any regard. I loved making my own art. It made me want to become a mangaka for a long time. If you don't know, that's what you call someone that makes manga. If you don't know manga, it's a version of mostly black and white comics with their own specific art style. Anime-ish. I loved making movies as a kid, and I wanted to become a YouTuber so bad the moment it came out. I was only about, 8 years old or 7 years old when YouTube came out, and I was about 9 or 10 when I started making videos. Hello. But it was the most fun I had had into my life to that point. Unfortunately, my father gave me no privacy whatsoever and eventually found out about my YouTube account. I was young, and I showed my face in a few videos when I turned about 12. Today I understand the reasoning for taking those down, but he made me quit posting on YouTube altogether, which was a big passion of mine, and it honestly made me really sad. And I lost my spark. I didn't want to continue if I wasn't going to be allowed to express myself in this way. Another thing, I also was only allowed to play games on the weekends, basically until I turned 17. I also didn't have a TV in my room, until I was about 16, and again, it wasn't a TV, it was just a really shitty monitor. As depressed as I was, gaming was my only joy. I had a hard time enjoying anything, but I loved playing games. I didn't have much of a chance to become a professional gamer in any game because of that. I never had much time to play. Another dream of mine crushed. I got straight A's in school, and I remember being in kindergarten, getting my first report card, and having all A pluses. And my parents actually cried because they were so proud of me. And after that, I tried to, get A pluses, all A pluses, but, classes got harder. It started to become a little less feasible unless I wanted to spend all of my time studying, which I was already doing, but I was really struggling because I had a lot of pressures on me. I would get a present every time I did well on my report card, but that only lasted for a few years, and then I stopped getting any incentive to do well. And then I started vying for my father's, what would I call this? Not really attention, but more just to hear and I'm proud of you. So I never got to see my parents cry over my grades again. Instead of it staying impressive, it became commonplace and expected. I got all straight A's through school, and it just ended up becoming more of a standard than an achievement. And it also really burned me out. If I wasn't perfect, if I didn't get 100, my father, he wouldn't congratulate me at all. If I got a 99, he'd be like, "Where's the 1 point?" and laugh about it. I didn't find it very funny because I rarely ever heard a "good job, I'm proud of you." My mom used to say it to me sometimes, though. She occasionally catered to my emotional whims. I guess that's why I felt closer to her my whole life. I defended and I protected her from my father because after a while it became us versus him. He mistreated us both. I was definitely at least verbally abused, among other things. He failed to love my mother in a way where she felt truly happy and satisfied. He didn't cater or care about emotions at all. He was a very logical person and made decisions that way. Whenever he wasn't mad, obviously. I dealt with a lot of shit growing up. It's not easy to be around someone who wants to control every facet of your life, every part of your being. My emotions were always too much for him, and it changed the way I viewed myself. In time, I began to hate myself for never being good enough, for being too emotional and sensitive, for not being everything he wanted me to be. There was one time I lost Helios, who was my favorite Bakugan. It was really cool. It had a ripcord and it would spin like a Beyblade onto the, magnetic card, and it'd open. I loved it. I considered it my best friend at the time because I loved watching the show, and I always wanted my own Bakugan that could talk to me. I wanted a partner I could count on like Dan had Drago. I thought I lost it in the movie theaters. Little did I know, it was actually, hidden away at home, and I found it so many years later when I was in my last year of high school, and I was just so happy to find it, it was insane. I remember talking about it in my religion class, when we were talking about things we were grateful for. I said I was super grateful for finding my Bakugan. And so I actually ended up crying as a kid almost every day for 2 weeks because I was so sad about losing that Bakugan. I felt I had lost my best friend. My father, as always, told me to stop crying. That wouldn't be the first or last instance I was told to keep my emotions to myself. I was deemed too sensitive and shut down and ended up numbing all my emotions because no matter what I did it the wrong way. That was only the beginning of my depression at around 10 years old. I'm now 24 and still depressed. It only got worse over the years, especially after cutting him off. because I had to deal with a lot of things on my own. It felt like a betrayal, how he would talk to me and how he would treat me and how he would call me a waste of money. So, when I was 19, my childhood dog died. I cried and cried for 3 days straight, nonstop. It was the first time someone important to me had passed. My family couldn't even tell me themselves. They called my grandma on the other side of the family to let me know. I never even found out the exact date of his death. They told me days later because I asked for pictures of him. Nobody could send me anything apparently. They didn't have them anymore. I was so confused. And then I got the call that changed my life forever. I haven't been the same since. I think a part of me died that day, along with my dog. For so long, I blamed his death on myself. It was my fault for leaving him with my family, when really I never wanted to bring him there in the first place. And honestly, nobody even cared about what I wanted. They forced me to take him, and then they made me leave them there because they refused to help me with getting a letter from the vet in order to take him back because it was another country. I felt his death was all my fault, and it was so much guilt. On the third day, I was crying again, and my dad finally told me to stop. I knew he was being too considerate over the last 2 days. He was basically just like, get over it. I had to hide my emotions. That was one of the last times I ever stayed with him, willingly. I finally decided to give him a chance, that during that break and stay over with him and his new family. Out of my own free will this time, thinking he had changed, yet he was still exactly the same. Emotionally challenged. He had no compassion and seemingly didn't care. My mom got terrible advice from her family and they told her to delete all my dog's pictures, take away and hide everything that was a memory of him. To spare me, apparently, because I simply needed to get over it. The year after his death was one of my hardest. My family never grieved with me. Everyone used to love my dog, and now nobody was there to console me. I felt I had lost my best friend and cried whenever I thought of him too much. Nobody was on my side. I can't explain the depth of my grief. I use his birthday as my phone password because I never want to forget him. He helped me emotionally more than my parents did. He was always there for me. It felt like he was erased and everyone conveniently forgot about him. But I never did. I've kept him in my heart these last few years. I was seemingly too sensitive. I could never live up to the expectations of what my father wanted in a daughter. I always had trouble accepting that I was a girl, which is why it felt like such a relief 12 years later to come to the realization and conclusion I was non-binary, and I always have been. I just didn't have a safe space to express it. This felt natural and right to me, and I felt as though I'd been looking for it all my life. When I finally moved away to college to get away from my father, I found some semblance of peace. I believe my father is the reason my mother had a stroke. It was a very scary time for all of us, and he felt guilty, obviously, because he knew him stressing her out so much was the reason why that happened. And I've never forgiven him for that. And I've also never forgiven him for leaving us when he did without even really trying to be a family. He just decided to move on to the next family and start again, because this was the second time he'd done it. He'd already left his previous relationship, and this time he refused to marry my mom. He just wanted to get away without, doing any court stuff. And my mom was so done with him, she just kind of let it happen. But she wouldn't stop complaining, But honestly, it was a really tough environment to grow up in when two people dislike each other so much, yet stay together for the sake of their child. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't stay with someone who you don't love. You should leave because you're strong enough to survive on your own. You don't need someone that only brings you down. You will find people who support you. And so once I moved away to college, my mom moved away too. So I felt good knowing that my dad wouldn't be able to harm her anymore. So now having my own space and the ability to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted was more freedom than I ever imagined. It felt amazing to do what I actually wanted to do for a change. I went to school first for graphic design but couldn't stand art history and couldn't get into the studio classes because they'd fill up so fast. So I took a film class just to, fulfill a gen ed, which is like a general education requirement. You have to fulfill a certain amount of these and a certain kinds. So this was just for like kind of an art gen ed, aesthetic I think they called it. But I ended up falling in love all over again with film. I worked so hard for it. I loved it. I loved how much you could see in a movie that wasn't just with the naked eye. It's about the story behind it and the hidden meaning behind everything. Oh, it was one of the greatest times in my life. I felt I had finally found a place where I belonged. I found my thing. I didn't tell my father that I was studying film until I was in senior year. It was the only thing I could withstand going through all the trouble for. And it made me happy. He wasn't very proud or happy to hear that. He kept telling me, "You're not gonna make any money." And he was right. I still haven't made much off filmmaking, probably only $616 for my services working as a PA for a production company. It was a brief stint. It made me realize I hate the corporate industry, and I only found a love for experimental cinema or films with deeper meanings behind them. I knew I disliked superhero movies for a reason. It didn't really have the depth I wanted. I wanted to get to know the stories of real people, and that has been my motivation to this day, to be as real as possible in every video I create. I want to bare my soul to the world with what I make. I want to be honest and truthful to the me that I know I am and can be. And for once, my sensitivity is a good thing. It helps me understand people and their plights. It helps me to be conscious of others' emotions and what I can do to make someone feel more comfortable. It's been really hard, and I've changed a lot since my kid years to now. I've become more accepting, more open-minded, more inclusive, and more supportive. I've become sensitive again, little by little. It will take a long time to go back to the way I was as a kid, to be that sensitive again. I've felt myself die on multiple occasions that have changed my life for the worst, but I come back as a bigger and better person every time. A version of myself I can be more proud of and grateful for. I'm very much into social justice, if you can't tell. Everything in my life has built me to be this person. It took a lot of hard work to get here, so it frustrates me how many people refuse to do the same. It's quite sad, and this is where our current president and society come into play. I can't feel free to fully be myself in America anymore. It has become a toxic land of hateful, bitter, and spiteful people. I'm a queer, non-binary person of color. I don't see my future here. So, the American dream is dead. When I was younger, I believed that when I got old enough, I would have a house, wife, and a kid. Most likely the furry kind. Now, I don't think I'll ever be able to afford a house in this economy. Let's take a look at the statistics. I'm going to just track the timeline from 2000 to the present time. That was the year I was born, to now, just to see how much has changed in just me growing up. And now, being close to my frontal lobe fully developing. Since 2000, the average house prices have gone up 160%. Yet, the average salary has only gone up by 30%. The prices go up, but the salary stays roughly the same. This is highly uneven, and honestly, buying a house is not feasible for me and many other low-income people. I gave up on the dream of having the ability to purchase my own home 4 years ago. I don't really like children, so I never really wanted to have them. And I realized it was mostly because of the way my dad treated me and how he disliked me so much. I just thought maybe you have to dislike children growing up. But I don't think that's the case. I actually quite enjoy spending time with my niece, my nibbling, which is the non-binary term for a niece or nephew. It's like a niece or nephew replacement, nibbling. It is so cute though. So I'll just refer to them as that. My nibbling. I really enjoyed spending time with them, and honestly, she was really sweet to me the last time I saw him. Like, I got in a fight with my dad at that time. I was in junior year of high school, and she just wrote me a letter afterwards saying that she hopes I feel better, and that was honestly so nice. But I've also been really fucking terrified to have a child because of how painful giving birth was. I remember being 6 years old, crying to my mom about it, and saying, I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to have a kid. And, like, certain people, like my grandma, of all people, like, she used to say to me that, like, people like me who said that they'd never have kids would end up with, like, 5 kids once I found the right man. Hello? How has nobody been able to tell that I was gay this whole time? I don't understand. Even though I tried to hide it, the signs were still there. Like, I can't hide something I'm so passionate about. It slipped out of me, dude. Like, they got mad at me when I came out, and I was just like, I should be mad at you for not figuring it out. What the hell? And then when I actually did come out to my parents in 6th grade, albeit it wasn't the best time, but still, I did it. I thought it would help ease the situation, and I actually was told by my father that all the money he spent on my schooling was a complete waste. And then during the last fight we had that resulted in me cutting him off, he told me again that again I was a waste of money, and that he just wasted so much money on school and he's never gonna see the returns. So that doesn't feel very good. So with how horrible most of my relationship to parenting was, and my depression, I felt I could never be a good parent. Why should I have children? The year after I cut off my dad, it was just a couple months after that big fight, I became really interested in getting a cat. I don't know why, something just sparked in me, and one day I decided to go to the animal shelter. And I looked around, and I saw this really cute white cat, and I was like, oh, so cute, so cute. Like, I'd never really, like, held a kitten before. I'd only ever seen fully grown cats, so it was just like, babies. They're so cute, I love them. And I just, like, came to pet the cats and get to know them. And then I came back I think like a week or two later, and that cat had already been adopted, and I was like, aw. And then I found Shadow, who is my cat, my one and only. Shadow was so cute. They were the only fully black cat in their litter. not to mention the only female, or should I say the only non-male, because all of them were boys. And they have black whiskers. I didn't know until a friend of mine told me, like about 8 months into having them, that actually black cats with black whiskers are really rare. Like, they really just have black whiskers, black nose, black paw pads. Everything's black. Even their toenails are all black. And there's certain, like, their thumb nails, those are also black. It's interesting which nails are black and which ones are more of the off-white, clear / see-through kind. It's just something interesting. So in September, I had the fight with him in August. So in September, I finally got Shadow. And okay, I was trying to prepare the house for their arrival, you know, making sure I had all the food, bowls, having toys, and last but not least, having a litter box. Trigger warning, by the way, skip ahead 15 seconds if you don't like the mention of blood or any kind of thing that has to do with that. So I was making a DIY litter box because I saw people from take a Walmart like cabinet and they would open it in the bottom to have 2 holes so the cat can go in and out, and you would just leave the bottom drawer as the drawer where you put the litter in. It was really interesting, and I'd never tried anything like that before, so I tried, and while I was cutting the plastic, I ended up slicing my hand open with a box cutter. My hand looked like fucking chicken. And it was my right hand of all things, which is my dominant hand. I was so freaking scared, man. I needed to wait a month before going back to my job because I couldn't even flex with my hand for the longest time. I didn't have the strength. But I think it was a happy accident because I got to spend the first 3 weeks of having Shadow, I got to spend it with them at home. And that was my life, and I was so happy. I would carry them on my hip while I did errands around the apartment. I took care of them every day. I cleaned their litter box every week. I fed them a few meals a day. I even slept with them in my bed. I'd wipe them down multiple times a day after using the litter box. I kept them clean. I bathed them. I'd end up going in the shower with them to make them more comfortable after they got too big for the sink. I cut their nails, but you know, they have scratched me, sometimes accidentally, sometimes playing around too rough. More than just a couple times I've been scratched, and regardless of all the hardships, it felt worth it. Those first 3 weeks felt like I had a newborn. Like, they literally became my baby, my child. I did everything I could for them. I took them to their vet appointments. Every few weeks I would go buy them food and occasionally litter and bring it all the way home. I had to walk like 15 blocks, dude. And it was tough because the bags were heavy, dude. But I did it anyways. I would have to take occasional breaks like halfway through the block, and it'd take me like 30 minutes to get home. But I'd get there eventually and I'd be sweating balls. So I just came to love my cat so much, like perhaps even more than my childhood dog, and I never thought that would be possible, that I could find a connection with an animal again. And it was a little rough at first, but I finally started to get the hang of things about 1.5 years into having them. I'd never had a cat before, mind you, so it was definitely different than what I was used to, but it felt more natural than having a dog, and it just felt like I needed a cat my whole life. I didn't actually need a dog, so, because now I'm actually taking care of them fully. I didn't take care of a dog. My mom did. Sorry. I was like 7 years old. Did you really expect a 7-year-old to be taking care of a dog fully? I don't know. I don't know why they believe me. I don't know. But now I have the capability of being responsible for another being. So, I think I became what I would deem a good parent. Someone who tries their best and cares for their child. This cat filled the hole in my heart that my last best friend, Choco, left on me. Shadow bonded with me in a way I've never bonded with anything or anyone before. They're literally my best friend. I love them so much, I can't explain the depths of my love. They helped me get through the toughest points in my life. They were there for me emotionally when no one else was, and I always felt better holding them to sleep in my arms. This is why I'm making them an emotional support animal, because I believe they deserve the title. Not that it'll do much in the outside world, it just means something to me. I thought I could never be a good parent because I thought I'd be just like my dad. But within the last 2 years of having my cat, I've definitely proved to myself I could do better than him if I just put my heart and soul into it and know my main focus is to make sure they're safe, happy, and healthy. My values and heart are in the right place, and I've changed to make that possible. I'm more mindful than at least half of the people in this country. I try my best to be as sensitive as possible because I believe it to be my superpower. I'm trying to be the hero I always dreamed of, someone who always tries to do the right thing. It's unfortunate how many other people don't have the same mindset, but it's also understandable because I feel like I see bad people who do bad things win more than good people who try to do the right thing. Every day you'll hear of some CEO that got out of a crime. Our current president was literally impeached last term and was actually considered a criminal, yet still became president. It's mind-boggling to me. So, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm gonna prove how our current president is, not what America needed at all in terms of his personality in person and online. My point is to prove why we shouldn't support people like this and how his attitude towards others is toxifying America as well as the potential implications on the rest of the world. All these reasons culminate in my ultimately needing and wanting to flee the country and live somewhere else. I'll also be comparing him to Mussolini later on and explain a bit more about fascism. So, let's get into it. To prove how the above is true, I will take the words from the donkey's mouth himself. The current president, on numerous occasions, has made some petty racist remarks. And of course, he was recorded for all of them and had no fear spouting lies and propaganda. During the recent debate with Kamala Harris, he brought up topics and concerns that aren't even real. He said that Haitians are eating pets in Springfield, a completely unfounded claim spurred by his already apparent hatred towards the people of Haiti. Near the end of his last term, he spoke on how the people of Haiti have AIDS and are basically a major contributor to the disease. Which, oh my god, it's Haitians had a higher percentage of AIDS than the US, yet still less than other African countries. They got it the same as everybody else did, unprotected sex, blood transfusions, and needles. It's mostly due to poverty and lack of access to healthcare, probably also a lack of knowledge about safe sex in general. He's actually made a point to make it harder for people from Haiti to immigrate legally due to these biases. You know, in 1980, they actually had the 4 H's, and one of them were Haitians being like main people. They kind of just like put Haitians in a box and said these people have more AIDS than anyone just because they had a higher percentage than the US, and they were deemed like the main propagator of the disease. And then in 1985, only 5 years later, the CDC took that back. They took that statement back and removed Haitians from the 4 H's. Yet, our current president believes in these rumors and everything that, you know, he believes Haitians are the reason for AIDS, and if we allow them into the country, then they will only spread the disease further. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. You can't just like start hating on a race of people, on a culture of people, because you personally dislike them and believe some hoax from before. Yes, it's true, the percentage was higher. But they are like, it's a third world country. Africa's countries had a higher percentage than Haiti. I mean, these people don't have the access to healthcare and the knowledge for safe sex as much as we do in these first world countries. Like, if you're going to go that route of blaming them for a disease, maybe you should think about the ways you can help them instead. To me personally, that feels like a better way of handling this. Instead, he made it harder for them to immigrate legally, so he's making it harder for a group of people to immigrate because of his own bias. And he's also doing the same for other countries as well, such as Cuba, Venezuela, and I think I have it here. Well, it'll come back later. I definitely bring it up later. But let's move on from Haiti. I just feel really passionate about it because I'm Dominican and Haitians are on the same island, so I still deem them my people. And I think it's really unfair to be treated this way when America was all about, you know, bringing immigrants in from other countries, and now all of a sudden he doesn't want people to be let in from other countries, yet doesn't give them a legal option to come in. He actually takes away the legal options, thinking that that's going to permanently stop the illegal immigration, which, you know, it isn't, because again, that is not the root of the problem. That is not what you should be tackling here. And he is also just having these ICE raids all around the country. Very sickening. Okay, basically, all this makes it harder for people who seek refuge from the current state of their home, or home country, to find a better life. This wasn't the first or last time he has stigmatized people. Other than Haiti, he's also allowed hate at one of his rallies, targeted at Puerto Rico. The comedian speaking at the rally called it a floating island of garbage. The administration only distanced themselves from it to save face, after everybody was commenting on how despicable it is for someone to be saying that. And if it was really a problem to them, they would have stopped it at the rally. They wouldn't have waited a couple days to be like, oh, we don't support this. No, they know what they're doing. As others have said, to quote Eddie Moran, this is confirming just how little he cares about Latinos specifically. To me, it's always been very obvious, yet some Latinos and Hispanics are still voting for him. It's repulsive, quite frankly, to follow and support someone who does not care about you. He's not aiming to help these people, he's actively trying to make their lives harder. He's now having ICE raids to further put fear into the heart of undocumented immigrants, as though they haven't been suffering enough. They tried to escape their country to try to find a better life for them, their families, and their children. I'm most worried about the effect this will have on families and children. I've seen and heard stories of children being born here and being separated from their parents because they were deported. Since the child is a citizen who was born here in the US, they'd stay behind. Ripping families apart seems inhumane. These are still people who have suffered and only wanted the best for their children and struggling families. Ending birthright citizenship for only undocumented immigrants is only the first step. From there, they can push to take away birthrights, period, as said by Beer. The executive order, and I quote, purports to limit the damage by applying it only to future children. But if they can get away with this blatantly unconstitutional action, they can strip anyone of their citizenship. The 14th Amendment would be dead. Speaking of unconstitutional, due to his campaign promises and general stigma against people of other countries, he has also resorted to threatening sanctuary cities' funding if they do not cooperate with his immigration policies. This next quote was sent in by 11 state attorney generals in their attempt to push back on the immigration and ICE enforcement. The troubling threats to weaponize the U.S. Department of Justice's prosecutorial authority and resources to attack public servants acting in compliance with their state laws, interfering with their ability to build trust with the communities they serve and protect. Denying state laws and rights that have been in place for decades to empower his agenda is only the first step in his total domination of the country and its people, and their mindsets. Government officials should work to protect their people, not prosecute them. He doesn't want anyone to come to the US anymore. It has to be only a certain kind of person that is acceptable to him. He has taken away Biden's attempt to give people from other countries, such as Venezuela, Cuba, and Haiti, among others, a legal way to get into the US. Now it's only plausible that the attempts of illegally coming into the country will heighten. He's trying to rule the country with fear and spreading false stigmas. Another quote from the president himself about trans people, because he's also against the LGBTQIA+. This is insane, but here it is. No transgender, no operations. You know, they take your kid. There are some places your boy leaves for school, comes back a girl, okay? Without parental consent. He's just blatantly spouting lies that no one has been able to prove are true. Many people are actually going against what he says because that situation has never occurred in the US. Even for minors who are under the age of 18, they need parental consent in order to go and do, transformative surgeries. He's fear-mongering and going after trans people as well as non-binary people. He sent out an order to disallow changing of your sex on your passport. There were some people, non-binary people, and sometimes trans people opted for this as well, who wanted to change their sex to be an X, leaving it open to whatever identity. Not even that is allowed. He's stopped allowing people to put their sexual identity as an X. He sent out an executive order for that. He's even said that he's making sure that there are only two genders in America, male and female. Let me tell you everything that is wrong with this statement. That is not gender. That is sex. Male and female is sex. Sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics at birth that determine if you're male, female, or intersex. Gender is how you express your own personal identity to the world. He's continuously propagating lies based on nothing but his own biases against people who are not white, heterosexual, and rich. He only seems to support his own kind of people. Economically, everyone is still waiting on prices to go down, but instead, they keep rising. Government programs that used to help people are now shutting down. He's closing Obamacare, which helped so many low-income families finally be able to afford healthcare. And I can really relate to this plight because I have a lot of physical issues. I have one kidney, I have a lot of stomach issues that I'm trying to deal with, but it's very hard because, I didn't have insurance. I finally got insurance recently through my partner after we became domestically partnered. And I also need help for my mental health, and that can get really expensive, visiting psychiatrists every couple of weeks. Insurance, again, is extremely expensive, and for a while, I gave up on taking care of myself, simply because I could not afford it. My paycheck is so small, I can barely afford to take care of myself, not to mention provide for my family like I wish I could. Everything is so expensive these days, including food, which is one of the most important things, and even with it being super expensive, the food quality has degraded so much within recent years. I haven't had as many stomach issues before as I'm having right now. The food just goes bad so quickly. It's just not good anymore. You have to go every day to the grocery store if you want to cook something. You have to pick it up day of, because if it sits in your fridge for 1 or 2 days, it's already done. It feels impossible to save these days with how expensive everything is. I have to live off what I have in the moment. I had to painstakingly save for over 3 months to be able to afford this monitor I got recently. It was my dream monitor, and I got it used because I needed it to cost less so I could actually afford it. Unfortunately, it has left me with little to no money left. I made this purchase for my career in YouTube and video editing, not to mention my dreams of becoming a more highly skilled gamer. I wanted to make my space more enjoyable so I could lock in and focus. All the little purchases in our daily lives that we make to save ourselves and our mental state are valid in the fact that we want to help ourselves in the only way we know how right now. With how miserable the world is, and this country specifically, it can be really hard to feel happy. I don't even watch the news anymore, as I've heard other people in my circle, coworkers, other friends, don't even go on social media anymore or watch the news because it is so draining to hear about the actions this administration is taking at the risk of its own people. All I want, again, is a government who cares about its people, and instead we have a government that applauds and promotes hate against anyone who is different. Any kind of minority, be it race, culture, sexuality, or gender. It's really sad to see how far America has fallen. We were so close to starting a new era of inclusivity a new era of inclusivity and acceptance. Gay marriage became a reality, and now I fear that they'll take that away too. He's starting with the minorities, only to make it easier to get the push to go after more kinds of people who don't fit his description of what a real American is. Make America great again? That includes changing the kind of people in America that he supports. He's able to promote his hateful lies and agenda, and his fan base praises him for it. Most people who voted for him could care less about trans people in general. From what I've heard and scoured on the internet, and also people I've unfortunately interacted with, is that they wanted him to fix the economy, or more rather, help them make more money. and get rid of illegal, undocumented immigrants. Quite frankly, I find it hard to be positive when I see my people being mistreated and targeted like this. I also find it hard to believe that the people who support him don't see the issues that will arise from his new executive orders and policies. Even his presence is toxifying. That, or they simply don't care who it affects. Then in that case, we are just promoting more individualism and reeling back in on the feelings of community. I'm so embarrassed to be an American at this day and age. Unfortunately, many countries look up to America, and I fear that they will follow in our conservative footsteps that the current president is so proud of. There's already places in Canada that want someone like him to run their country. It is very demoralizing to see, especially because I feel so much for my people, and I only want them to succeed and lead happy lives. Since when did it become a crime to be ourselves, to be sensitive, accepting, inclusive, and open-minded? I used to be shamed for being gay, then it was cool, and now it's just dangerous. I'm not trans, but I understand them as a non-binary person. I feel that we go through very similar experiences. I feel that I'll never be able to pass as someone who is not a woman, and it is very saddening. It dampens my mental health because I know who I am, but being surrounded by so many ignorant people who refuse to read up on gender and what it truly means, I've almost given up on standing my ground since it feels so hopeless. What's even worse is the censorship this current administration is pushing. They are taking down sites to learn about anything LGBTQ and also have taken down resources for young people to get gender-affirming surgeries. Why does it bother others so much when they don't understand it? People just want to be themselves. I don't understand why it's such an issue. People can't get over the fact that other people's normal is just different from theirs. We are being hounded as a people and having our rights stripped away from us. I may as well leave to somewhere where I can have a happier life and don't have to worry about being hate crimed. I'm always worried about violence in any form, but especially the gun violence. It is so bad here. It's scary. It's terrifying right now. I read an article a few months ago where a man got time in prison for gifting his son of 14 years. 14 years old. The dad gave his son a gun. And the kid killed 4 people at his new school. Why are we the only country with such prominent school shootings? Children shouldn't have to worry about being killed at school. They should be protected and instead kept safe. With the rise of our current administration, I see in my day-to-day the change it has made across the US. Seeing the map so red after the election really opened my eyes. But that was just the beginning. I've seen an influx of people online just being generally more hateful. It is so rare to find people online whose values I can actually agree with. What gets me the most is using outdated and offensive terms, like it's nothing. One word that is being used in a negative sense lately that I've noticed a lot, and I thought we grew out of this. I really thought we were doing better. But apparently gay has made a comeback in the negative word department, and it is so upsetting. Such as like, oh, this is so gay, and saying it in a negative way. I expected better from my fellow people. Some people just simply don't care about LGBTQIA plus rights. A lot of people don't care about any minorities' rights being taken away because it doesn't concern them. It's quite concerning to know so many people don't care. It's demeaning and sends me into a spiral, I'm not gonna lie. So today, I have something here that the administration took down because it doesn't want people to know the truth and only further want to push their agenda. For one, LGBTQIA plus people do not try to force people to, air quotes, join the team. If anything, it is heterosexual cis people who force us to be like them and disallow us from being ourselves. I, for one, won't stand for it, which is why I want to leave the country to somewhere else I can feel safe. As well as why I made this video. I just want to highlight the experiences of people who are suffering because it should be known that this just isn't right. Anyways, this is a survey based on how the mental health of teenagers has dropped significantly from 2013 to 2022. More and more teens are feeling depressed as well as dealing with suicidal ideation. Most of those who are affected are children who are minorities and LGBTQIA+ kids. There's also a statistic showing how girls are more likely to be depressed than boys. I mean, for me, the answer is quite simple. History. Women have forever been oppressed, forced to be seen as lesser than a man, incapable of doing what a man can do. We only recently started going through a feminist era, and honestly, I see more people making fun of it than respecting it. If that doesn't tell you how few men take the problems of women seriously, then how about this? Most black women are not listened to by doctors. They aren't believed when they are in pain and are assumed to be tough enough to handle anything. White women, on the other hand, are treated much better and sometimes forget about the other women in the world and their plights. They have an easier time being in society than most other women from different cultural backgrounds do. The LGBTQIA+ community hasn't gotten a break since gay marriage was legalized. There are certain groups that have been actively working to overturn the legalization and are very much against it. They work to make our lives harder. For some reason, it's impossible for these kinds of people to allow others to live their lives as authentically as possible. What has to happen before people realize we are all human? We all have the same feelings, and inside we are all the same. Just because you like a different sex doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change anything. Love is love, no matter what way you put it. That's why I love being non-binary, because it is a freedom to me. I can love people so wholeheartedly it can crush me. And I can't help it. That's just how I am. I'm so glad I found a partner that I can be myself with and fully love. We share values and enjoy each other's company. We are in tune emotionally and are there for each other. That's just what a relationship is in general. It doesn't matter that we're queer. That's what a relationship should be. Stay because you want to, and not because you have to. You shouldn't have to force yourself to be something you're not. Finding my identity has changed my life in ways I can never go back from. Now I'm hypersensitive about pronouns. I give off a masculine appearance, but because of my body, people down here will always consider me to be a woman. It has sent me into a pit of despair on more than one occasion. I don't understand how hard it is to just change my pronouns when you talk about me. They're important and they mean something to me. They are my identity to the world. Yet so few deem it important until you get their pronouns wrong. That's when they have a problem. As people, why can't we speak and talk to each other with respect, no matter what you identify with? Why does it matter? I feel so close to the LGBTQIA+ community because it feels like we all see something deeper. I took the time to understand my feelings and my gender, so if you haven't, seems like a you problem, and you might be feeling inferior in some way. I don't know. Why start to blame people like me for all the misfortunes in the world? The rich, white, and powerful have been allowed to do whatever they want. It's time we make a stand and show people what's right by living our lives the way we would like others to. I just want people to be themselves. I would love for people to respect others and accept uniqueness. Why would you want everyone to be the same? I sure don't. That would be extremely boring. I'd love to see everyone's differences and personalities. That's interesting and fun for me. It's enjoyable. I wish to create a space where everyone who has nowhere else to go has a safe space with me. So again, I am rallying everyone to find some unity in community, because it's clear we only have one another to depend on. I'm not trying to spread hate, I'm trying to tell the real story of real people. And if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. I've left all the articles I used to back my evidences in the description. Please give them a look and save as PDF any websites you fear might be taken down. The people need more info on trans people especially, because they don't understand the feeling of being uncomfortable in your own skin. The happiness so many trans people feel after surgery is elating. Only a very, very small % of people decide to go back to their original sex after surgery. The people who want it the most have wanted it their whole lives. I've known I was different forever. I have always been non-binary. This is nothing new. I have only put a word to the feeling now. I wish I had someone who could support me when I was growing up, and I hope I could be that person for others. Good luck in your journeys, my fellow artists, gamers, and queers. I wish you all the best. This has been the Giro News Network. Giro out. It is 1:11. Okay. So, I'm gonna go back to Okay, so speaking of censorship, if you're still here, I do have something I want to read and explain about fascism and the similarities between our current president and Hitler, as well as Benito Mussolini, who were two very prominent fascist leaders back in the World War I days. So I'm going to read this from Wikipedia because it simply just does the best job of putting everything together in a nice format and quick enough that I can just read it to y'all. So, fascism rose to prominence in early 20th century Europe. The first fascist movements emerged in Italy during World War I, before spreading to other European countries, most notably Germany. Fascism had also had adherents outside of Europe. Fascists saw World War I as a revolution that brought massive changes to the nature of war, society, the state, and technology. The advent of total war and the mass mobilization of society erased the distinction between civilians and combatants. A military citizenship arose in which all citizens were involved with the military in some manner. The war resulted in the rise of a powerful state capable of mobilizing millions of people to serve on the front lines, providing logistics to support them, and having unprecedented authority to intervene in the lives of citizens. Fascism rejects the view that violence is inherently negative or pointless, but rather views imperialism, political violence, and war as a means to national rejuvenation. Fascists often advocate for the establishment of a totalitarian one-party state, and for a dirigist economy, a market economy in which the state plays a strong directive role through economic interventionist policies. This could be very similar to what I talked about before in our current president threatening to take away funding from sanctuary cities if they don't comply with the new immigration policies. With the principal goal of achieving autarky, which is national economic self-sufficiency. I don't think we have achieved that at all. I think maybe that is the goal, but I don't know how long that will take. And I don't think it's going to come about in a good way. Already seeing how much has happened within the last month. It hasn't even been a month. This is insane that he's already trying to change everything and get rid of everything that is actually helpful. But anyways, fascism's extreme authoritarian... This word is hard, okay. Authoritarianism and nationalism centers around the own group, but that can manifest as a belief in manifest destiny, revival of a historical greatness, like Mussolini seeking to restore the Roman Empire, or in case of Nazism, racial purity or a master race, which blended with some variant of racism or discrimination against a demonized other, such as Jews, homosexuals, transgender people, ethnic minorities, or immigrants. So let's talk about this for a little bit, because manifest destiny, what is Make America Great Again? That's basically that. That is exactly that. And with the racial purity or a master race, I feel that he's also aiming for the same thing because of his great and obvious and apparent disdain for anyone who is a minority. He's also very openly racist, again, with those comments about Puerto Rico and Haiti. So, again, discrimination against a demonized other. Now he's targeting illegal, undocumented immigrants and transgender people. Also, if you didn't know, transgender people, homosexual people, just gay people, anyone who had like a mental illness, those were the first people. Okay, I'm sorry for the sound outside. I like don't know what to do. Pissing me off right now. Okay, just bear it. I'm so sorry. But I have to say that homosexuals, gay people, transgender people, immigrants, and people with mental illness, they were the first people to be put in the gas chambers. They were the first kinds of people. And then brought in the Jewish people. And they suffered so much. And we still hear stories to this day of Holocaust survivors from this era. I'm scared that we are going to have our own kind of Holocaust here. Let me continue reading. These ideas have motivated fascist regimes to commit massacres, forced sterilizations, deportations, and genocides. During World War II, the genocidal and imperialist ambitions of the fascist Axis powers resulted in the murder of millions of people. Killing people for who they are should never be a thing. That is just who they are. The hate crimes against black people, the hate crimes against transgender people, the hate crimes against gay people. These are all real things that happen all the time. Not like what he's saying, like kids go to school, they come back with a trans surgery. That does not happen. What happens is we get hate crimed for the lies that he spouts. And it is a very dangerous place to be right now. I am so scared for all my people because of this, which is why I've thought of moving to Japan myself. Because quite honestly, I can't live here. I can't afford to live here. I'm not happy living here under this regime that the administration is trying to pull. I don't feel safe here as a non-binary queer person of color. I'm never gonna feel safe here. There is always the threat of gun violence. No matter where you are, there is always a possibility. In Japan, it's at least a lot safer than here. Whatever that they go through, I think I could tolerate it better than what I can tolerate here. Because at least most Japanese people, I read the statistics online actually, that I think over half of the population of Japan, maybe even 70%, is for the legalization of gay marriage. And there is a growing populace of gay people in Japan. They're also a little xenophobic, maybe a lot. Actually, they are very xenophobic. But honestly, I'm just thinking I'll stick to myself and find my own community. I might just find other foreigners who are gay and, they came here looking for a better life. I've heard stories of gay married couples lesbian married couples moving to Japan because, one, a little more affordable if you have US dollars in money. It can be hard to survive off a paycheck in yen because the yen is valued so little now. Hello. It's gone down in value a lot recently. I also really like how the general, idea of Japanese people, they are trying to, they look for the soul in things. They try to really master their craft and they don't just half-ass things, I really enjoy that mentality of doing your best, trying your best, and, making something that feels worthwhile to you. That's honestly really beautiful, and it's something I try to incorporate in my everyday life for sure. I don't want to half-ass things anymore. I want to try to do the best job that I virtually can at the moment. Not to mention their food is really great, and it's a lot healthier too than the food here. The food here, all of it is fried, I swear to God. You can't find anything that isn't fried these days. Only thing I can eat now is rice and beans. With all my stomach issues, I feel like eating the food here has made my stomach issues much, much worse than if I were in another country. Japan is known for having more of a healthy diet, and I've even heard stories of people who move there and they end up losing weight actually because, one, in Tokyo you have to walk everywhere. There's also the train, of course, but in a lot of the cities people just walk everywhere. Not a lot of people can afford cars per se, but also with public transportation you don't necessarily need a car because the public transportation is so good, which is another plus. Good transportation. The only thing that bothers me is how packed the trains can get, but honestly I lived in New York, dude. I think it's the same thing. I wouldn't even be surprised, and I'm honestly not scared of it either. But I would prefer, trains with less people, so I'll probably try to go on the trains at times where there are less people in general. Yeah, I've also heard that people lose weight not just by walking around so much, but also because of the food just being really good. Japanese people, when they cook, they tend to really like to keep the innate flavors of whatever it is they're cooking, instead of just slathering on a sauce or putting a lot of seasonings. They really try to bring out the flavor of whatever it is, and I appreciate that because that would also help my stomach, and I'd probably want to eat more fish because I can't really eat many kinds of meat other than boiled chicken, I guess. It's very sad. It's a very sad existence. So for me, a lot of those healthy diets would actually help me and my condition, and not to mention the fact healthcare is much more affordable there. If you live there, you have a visa, it is more affordable for sure. you pay every month or every couple of months. And over there you can actually like get appointments to doctors the next day and be seen the next day. You don't have to wait like weeks in advance to see someone like it is here. I'll wait so long to see someone. It is so hard to find a doctor that one can even give me the appropriate level of care, and two, to like even find one that takes my insurance, because it is so hard, and it's like so particular with what kind of insurances certain doctors can take. And it's really sad. It's really disheartening. It made me kind of give up on myself for a little bit, but I'm trying again, you know. I'm doing things. I'm trying to put myself first and my mental health first. I even took a break from Marvel Rivals simply because I got so mad. I crashed out on stream, for real. I had to delete the VOD. I felt so bad. And I just decided that is not the look I want for myself and my channel. I want to keep my analytical mind on. I want to see what I could have done better. I want to focus on improving, on understanding character fundamentals, on understanding fundamental mechanics. You know, I want to be better. I want to reach a higher level, and I don't know why I want it so bad, but I feel that I can do it. For the first time in my life, this is a game where I've actually gotten to a pretty reasonably high rank. Now, I can't grind to Grandmaster because, hey, I'm going to join a tournament this month in about 18 days. I will be streaming on the 22nd. Me and my friends are joining the tournament, the friends I usually play with. So we're gonna be practicing our teamwork. I'm gonna be practicing new characters to kind of spice things up and practice a new role, because we already have kind of enough support players, to be honest. We have two, me, and then another person. So 4 people, but I will occasionally be a third support, mostly focusing on DPS, and I'm excited to try out this new role. And I've done research on the topics. I've done research on, you know, what these characters should be doing. I've watched a ton of videos, I've watched a ton of guides, and I've like written down the notes, the most important things that I should keep in mind. And it helps me feel, well, it helps me give myself a little more faith. So, yeah. Look forward to that. If you want to support me, you can sponsor me on Patreon. And I'm also opening a Metafy.gg shop, so I will be putting things on there. I can do VOD reviews, and if you want to learn a new character, I can do the research for you, tell you the best things. Just gotta give me, you know, some time to do that, and within a few days I can get back to you with a nice little cheat sheet of what you should focus on to improve your gameplay with said character. So look out for that. I'm gonna keep all my links in the description. I'm putting all the article links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a really long video, and I wholly and honestly appreciate every single one of you that stayed to the end and that watched this in its entirety. This was a passion project of sorts. I actually had another video lined up, which I will end up releasing next week, because I feel that it needs a little bit more work and I've just been a little burnt out. So I needed a more chill editing session, and I needed more time on the other video. So thank you for supporting me. A view, a like, a subscribe, all of it is super helpful to me. Just thank you so much for your time, I know it's hard to find interesting people on YouTube these days. A lot of people are more of the same, a bit boring. I'm hoping I'm able to give you something different. I am a variety channel, and I don't know if that will ever change because I love many things and I just want to share all my interests and passions with you guys because, again, I see you guys as my friends, even if we haven't met each other yet. So, thank you so much. I put my heart and soul into this. I did research. The only bias I have is the fact that I hate people who mistreat other people. Pretty much. And my history kind of explains why. I've been mistreated a lot in my life, and I want to help defend other people who may not be able to say anything themselves. And even if, nothing comes of this, I'm still happy I made this because I'm able to get my voice out there, and I know I have a voice for defending people who are in need. So, yeah. Once again, it's Jiro, sometimes Rinji, and as always, your favorite hero. If you like the vibes, subscribe. As always, love my cat, love my wife, love my life. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah!